Celeste devs, Extremely OK Games, very, very awesome name of a studio, have announced their next big project. They're titling it a 2D explor-action, game, and they've titled it Earthblade. So in terms of their actual announcement, they've described it more as a vibe reveal. I don't know, Swinny, have you listened to the soundtrack or component of the soundtrack that they published?
No, I haven't listened to that. I've just looked at the I guess the artwork they've released and the logo
I listened to the music.
Maddie Thorson's a really
Oh,
really
you
cool
listened to the
blog.
music, Mike? What'd you think
Yeah.
of it?
Well, I liked it, but it's it's just a sound. It's a soundtrack. It's hard to get anything out of it if you know what I mean. I kind of get
Well, it's a vibe.
the vibe thing.
It's vibe.
Yeah, but it's honestly, I can't associate that to anything because there's games that had similar kind of music that were totally different kind of games in their own way. So it's hard to judge it. But all I can say is it sounded really cool. Like it's the kind of music that I think would make for an awesome soundtrack.
To me, like this, the vibe that I get from this is very SNES era, like
Oh, yeah, big time.
like your Secret of Mana kind of stuff.
Oh.
That's exactly the kind of thing that the logo, especially, is just like this. If that's what they're going for, they've nailed it. So,
Well, they have to, right? Like,
yeah.
so I had Secret of Mana up on my screen as well. It's like, surely that is, yeah, like these people, they're, well into their games, and they wouldn't even show this unless people said, yeah, Secret of Mana is the vibe you're going for.
Yeah.
And do you think it's going to be that style of game? Because they kind of didn't really even say that.
I don't think it is. I think that's just the kind of feel that they want from it. To be clear, this article, as I said, it's just a vibe reveal, but also just kind of talking a bit about the process of how they've selected this project and finding a balance between, what they call the unknown and the comfort zone. I think that's an awesome line. That's something I probably use in my day-to-day now. It's like, you got to find a balance between what you're used to and new stuff. And I think that I really, really like this article.
It's such a good
and
article.
it's made me pumped for when they finally do the big reveal. They've said they're not going to show off much about the game at all until they've got a lot to show. So you really,
Which is really cool, I think.
Yeah,
I don't think like this whole studio and everyone involved has done any wrong at any stage. Like, I just go through all the stuff and the history and everything like that. It's pretty incredible. Like, they've just been on this mad streak.
well, they did release an Ouya game, but it made them famous. So it made.
But
them
it's on
famous.
everything now.
I
It's on
know.
everything.
So it wasn't a misstep.
See, we're talking about Towerfall.
I just want to talk about the Ouya. That's
Yeah, no, even when I said that, I actually thought of the Ouya and that as an example because it actually propelled them to get known. And then they just released it on everything anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
there was no downside to it. It was actually heaps of upside.
Yeah.
I'm super pumped. I love I echo your sentiment around the description because the way I normally say it is something along the lines of you need to push yourself to a point where you're just beyond uncomfortable. Right. So you're doing something and whatever it is, like exercise, work, learning, development, all those kind of stuff, you need to get yourself to a spot where you go, I just don't feel quite right about this. And you're probably in the right zone of learning and growing and developing. But this way is quite different because it's kind of almost denoting that there's two spaces. There is a space where you're really comfortable and the space where you're completely uncomfortable. And finding that balance between them is essential.
But wouldn't you in and of itself, the sweet spot is when you're comfortable about the uncomfort, if that makes sense.
I don't think so.
Well, to me, that is the sweet spot where I know I have the confidence that I can overcome the challenge, but I enjoy the fact that there's a challenge in front of me, that you're not just repeating and you're having a dull day and you're just like an autopilot mode, basically. You're in a mode where there's a challenge in front of you, but you don't feel so crazy overwhelmed that you can't overcome it, but in fact you actually welcome the challenge. And to me that's like the sweet spot where there's a challenge in front of you but you're looking forward to actually tackling that challenge. And that's the way I read this. They're in that awesome middle ground that
it's gonna seem like a ridiculous comparison, but it makes me think of creating Mario Maker levels, because there's always part of me that's like, okay, I'm obviously creating a new level after I create all these bunch of levels, but it's like I'm going to do something different, but I still feel very comfortable with the core mechanics of what I'm building and everything. But it's like it's kind of that feeling. Like it's hard to describe, but that's the closest I've got to compare it to. But it just made me think of that feeling. So I want to go outside of my wheelhouse, but also stick to some of the core things that I feel comfortable doing. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I would love to see, because this was basically, I'd say, they're sort of saying the fourth prototype that they'd made post Celeste that they felt comfortable with progressing with. I'd love to see what they were doing with the other three, because it sounded like they were pushing too far and it was going to take way too long to make those games. But I feel like it's one of those things we probably won't know about for 7 or 8 years, probably after this game even comes out. So yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to this, and I think just given Celeste and everything like that, I'd probably be almost a day one on this one, Earthblade.
Ooh, okay.
So I'm really keen for this to come out, and it sounds like it's going to be a couple of years away before it actually launches. So, but I'm sure it's going to
Take
be
your
worth the wait.
time, incubate it, make it great. There's no need to rush it out.
There you go. Incubate it, make it great. All right, let's get into the next story. So